Hi everyone, namaste. My name is Roy Holm and I live here in Everett, Washington, just a bit north of Seattle. And I'd like to offer 9 tips to deepen and enhance your yoga practice. Asana or the poses are a great gateway, a great beginning. Many of us start with that, but some of us stay with that and we forget that the promise of yoga is so much bigger than beyond hamstrings, which is the name of this video. So that's the first tip I want to offer is go beyond hamstrings. I say that half jokingly. Nothing against hamstrings, but there's so much more. I talked to TKV Desikachar. I got to ask him a question before he passed on some years ago down in Portland. And I kind of knew what he might say, but I said, do you think we in the West are a little too asana, pose focused exercise wise? And he said, something like, yes. He got all excited. He said, yes, by the time you're 50 or 60, I think he said, ideally it should be only about 20% asana, maybe 40% meditation, and 40% pranayama breath. So we in the West often it's 95, 99% asana or poses and not much of the meditation or breath work or the other limbs of yoga for that matter. The great, wonderful yoga teacher in Vini Yoga, Gary Krasow, said something like this once, that yoga in the West has been reduced to asana, the poses. That's been further reduced to flexibility and stretching and all the way down to hamstrings. So yoga in the West is hamstrings, but of course, again, it's much more. So that's the first tip, and let's see how else we can deepen our practice. So tip number 2 is to use the breath. That's the single most important thing I think we can do to deepen our practice, is to connect the movement to the breath. The word, of course, breath in many languages is the same use for spirit. So this is a profound thing we're doing when we become aware more of our breath and use the breath. And I'm not talking about pranayama, of course, is outstanding. A pranayama practice, extending, regulating the breath, but just the simple movement connected to the breath, I think, is the single most powerful, profound thing we can do to deepen our asana practice. And some would even say that the breath is the bridge between the two worlds, spirit and body, the unmanifest and the manifest, the formless and the form. So this is a very profound thing we do. If nothing else, I mean, there's physiological components in connecting the movement to the breath, but I think even more important is the energetic. We give the mind something to do that's useful rather than worry, and we become more present, and presence is everything. So breath is life. Make that the foundation of your practice, in my opinion. Okay, our third tip is less is more. This is something I find myself saying a lot in my yoga classes, and it's kind of hard to articulate, except I'll give my best shot. Basically, we in the West often, or maybe the whole world, we tend to force and push and strive and struggle. And what we're seeking is already here. That's the secret. We are the love we seek. We are the joy we seek. We are the peace we seek. But we're striving. We've been pretty beat down, a lot of low self-esteem, a lot of desperation in the background of all this striving. It's really actually a very important topic. So if we can just slow down a little bit, not just the pace, but more intention and attention, notice what the body really wants and needs in any given moment. We're trying to build a trust between spirit and body. And if we're overriding or ignoring the body, and sometimes I see people that always choose the strongest version of the pose, and that might be what their body wants, it might not be. So we got to really be honest with ourselves and really kind of back it up a little bit and just try playing with this idea of less is more, building this relationship, building the trust. So that's tip number 3. So tip number 4 is to experiment. We're trying to get to know ourselves on the spiritual journey. It's a big thing. And many times when we start our yoga practice, we don't know ourselves very well. We don't know who we really are. So we may make some mistakes. One thing we often do is we get maybe attached to a certain style of yoga or a certain teacher. And that can be great, nothing wrong with that. But maybe that teacher or that style is not always optimal for what we're aiming for, what we're maybe needing. Familiar is not always optimal. You know, for example, somebody that might be a kind of a pitta, hard driving type A that might choose a style that's really hot yoga or hot flow or fast flow. Might feel good, that's great. But if we're honest with ourselves, maybe sometimes our body or our energy system needs to slow down, settle into a yin or vinyasa or kripalu once in a while. Could be the other side too. Someone that's sluggish or lethargic or going through a little depression may sink into a nice yin class that might feel really good and familiar, but maybe they need to kind of stretch the comfort zone and move the energy, get a flow or something once in a while. You see, so again, familiar is not always optimal. We can be honest with ourselves and try different things and see what's really working. We should feel some genuine benefits. There's no good or bad, no right or wrong, but play with that idea. That's tip number 4. So tip number 5 is the best teacher of yoga is yoga itself, in my opinion. Nothing against all the wonderful, beautiful teachers out there, but teachers are fallible. Actually, every style of yoga has, in my view, a gift and also a shadow side, if that makes sense. I won't give any examples because I don't want to upset anybody with that. But certainly every teacher like myself, I could go on and on with my own examples, every teacher has gifts and a shadow. So yoga is kind of a self-correcting practice. We just show up on the mat. What did Patabi Joyce say? Just practice and all will follow, right? So if we're honest with ourselves, that's the key. With attention and intention, we show up on the mat and let the yoga itself guide us, teach us. It'll take us into really profound places beyond hamstrings, as I'm half jokingly calling this little tip video. So play with that one. That's tip number 5. Okay, tip number 6 and 7 are actually yamas. Some of you are very familiar with the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, where he or she, whoever Patanjali is, kind of mysterious sage, talks about 8 limbs of yoga. The very first limb is the yamas, and I'm going to talk about the first 2. Tip number 6 is ahimsa. My teacher used to say that ahimsa is kind of the overriding or most important maybe of the yamas, of these moral disciplines. It kind of trumps the other ones, because if you're being nonviolent, you're going to probably honor all the other guidelines. You're not going to be lying, stealing, all that stuff, being greedy. So that's a very good point. I want to take ahimsa beyond the yoga mat, of course, out into the world, but I want to go beyond just nonviolence as ahimsa, but also as compassion and self-love. We've got an epidemic of self-loathing and self-hate, low self-esteem on this planet right now, often in the West, and it's kind of hard to fathom, but if you dig deep, you'll see reasons for that. So this is really important, to start to honor ourselves, our worthiness, our innate worthiness, how beautiful we really are. But again, not just on the yoga mat, but out in the world. On the yoga mat is a great practice. We just kind of start seeing when we're beating our body up or forcing again, kind of like we already talked about. So that is tip number 6, going beyond ahimsa, nonviolence. Compassion, by the way, is also a catalyst, really, some of us feel, for this new energy where we are on Earth, this higher vibration. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that in a minute. But compassion helps move us out of that illusion of separation. So that's tip number 6. Let's go on to another yama in tip number 7. So the 7th tip is the second yama, satya, the truth. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, it was said. So this is very important. I feel this is the most important of the yamas. Truth guides all. When we're out of alignment with truth, whether it be on the yoga mat or out in the world, when we're not true with ourselves especially, but then my teacher in India, Bhagavan, would often say, if you're not true to yourself, you're not going to be true to anyone else. We're out of alignment. So I think this is really key, especially some would say right now we're moving out of the Kali Yuga, the age of density, the Iron Age of forgetfulness of who we are. We're moving into the age of truth. We're starting to wake up and remember. So any lower vibration energy needs to be shown the light of truth, awareness. So this changes everything. Just be honest on the yoga mat and all else will follow again. So that's tip number 7, aligning with truth, with ourselves and others. So tip number 8 is to raise our energy vibration. And this kind of ties in with what I just talked about, truth. it's, again, very important with this new, some of us don't really realize that there is a genuine, very real, very rare alignment going on. That's what this whole 2012 thing was all about. There's an influx of higher vibration energy. If we do not match that to some degree, we're going to suffer. In my view, it's a loving universe that is inviting us and helping us, and all kinds of teachers showing up, all kinds of great tools to assist us to raise our vibration. How do we raise the vibration? Is basically, it's all energy, and we just basically start paying attention, see where we're guided, what kind of practice serves us, slow down, all these things we're talking about today. Get out in nature, relax more, eat better, gosh, hang out with people that want to speak truth and raise their vibration. So again, the lower vibration energies are old fear, shame, guilt, whatever, even grief and all that. If we don't start to feel it, face it, heal it, move the energy, it will weigh us down more and more, and we'll suffer more because it's not compatible. It won't resonate with the new earth paradigm we are co-creating. It's a very exciting time. So that's tip number 8. Raise your energy vibration. Basically, it just means do what really genuinely feels good. So let's move on to our last tip, number 9. So tip number 9 is kind of a bonus tip. And first I want to bring my friend to introduce Coda. We can say hello. So the last tip is just that it is kind of bonus time on Earth. And by that I mean with this higher vibration that's coming in on Earth, which again is very real. It sounds kind of woo-woo, mysterious, but it's true. And it is bonus time. Some of the patterns that seem so permanent, some of the generational family stuff, we're so entrenched in, like I said, self-hate and all these other patterns, some scars and beliefs that just don't work, these false or limiting lies and beliefs. They seemed permanent, but they are actually able to be worked loose easier now with a little bit of spiritual practice and intention and attention. Again, in the past, the master might say, yeah, just keep doing this mantra for 10 lifetimes and you might make some progress. Well, now it can happen easier. It's always been possible, right? We're miracle workers. We forgot that. But it's very possible now. So that's just the last tip, to have some trust, have some faith, and expect a miracle. Start to create miracles. When I studied in India, we'd talk about the daily miracles every morning just so we remind ourselves, oh, that's right. That's just our birthright. It's not something that mysterious. We're bigger than we've been taught. So enjoy the shift. Enjoy your yoga practice. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me. And it's a pleasure and honor to be here on the journey with you. I'll let Kuda say goodbye. Blessings to you all. Namaste.